What's happening, everybody? Got the Raging Bull out again today. Going to do a disassembly video on it. Also, we're going to talk about the spring kit that I put in this thing. And the spring kit was awesome. This is from Wolf. There you go. And there you can kind of see the models that this is for. Actually, I think this gun is a model 454. I think model 454 for 454 Casull. And I actually didn't see model 454 listed on here. Just model 44, 445, 441, 431. I don't even really see model 444 on here, which would be a Raging Bull 44 mag. But at any rate, these springs still worked, and they actually did an awesome job on this thing. I don't know if you recall in the last Raging Bull video, but I mentioned that the trigger pull was horrendous. That's fixed now. Something else I need to start out with. Last time I took this gun apart, I was griping about getting all the Allen wrenches out. Little did I know, there was actually an Allen wrench in the box for the gun. So, that was my own fault. But let's start out by taking the grip off. I'm going to show y'all how to take this thing apart and put those springs in. And I'm going to do this because when I got the spring kit, I thought, okay, let's put these springs in. Let's go to YouTube first and find a video on how to disassemble a Raging Bull. And lo and behold, I didn't find one. So I am now going to be your only source for knowing how to take this thing apart. So take the grip off. By the way, I was shooting it the other day. The medallion came out of my grip. See how there's a medallion there? Not over here, there's a big hole. Called Taurus about that. They're sending me a new one, which is pretty nice of them. Just a whole new grip. And thought that was pretty good. They said it'd be here in 7 to 10 business days. Okay, so you got your grip off of this thing. Now, like I said in the last video, this is kind of a mix between a Ruger and a Smith & Wesson. So, we'll see. The first thing you want to do, or the first thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to take a paper clip. This is a pretty small paper clip. I'm going to, let's first just make sure it's unloaded. Unload it. Cock the gun. Now you see this extended down. See, watch this right here. That extends down. So what you want to do, there's a little hole in there. You want to take this paper clip, put that down in there. Now let the hammer back down. That captures the spring, and you should be able to get that out of there now. Okay, I can't get it out at the moment. Don't know why. Oh well, we'll get it here in a minute. So then you take your handy dandy screwdriver set right here. Find you a bit that fits these 3 screws right here. That fits pretty good. So let's use that one. You don't want to use a bit that's too big. You can't, but you can actually go too small too. You want one that just fits in there nice and snug. Okay. Yeah, the spring kit on this thing really transformed this gun. Also, while I was in there, I kind of just took an old cloth and wow. Well, cleaned up the parts that I was pulling out, and gun even feels a little smoother. All right, now this one right here, this screw, when you take that out, that actually has a little bitty cap on it focus. That actually has a little bitty cap on it with a spring underneath it. You do not lose that. You can't lose that. If you lose that, you're screwed. So don't lose that. So I'm going to set that over there. Got these other screws. I'll take them out. They just fall out. Now, I don't know why that's being so hard to come out. I think it's that paper clip is in there, kind of funny, or something. Let's bump the camera. That should come out. Come on. Never had a problem getting that out of there. It's that paper clip. Oh, stupid thing. Ruger gives you just kind of a piece of metal to stick down in there. Okay, whatever. It's stuck in there for right now. So to get the side plate off, do not pry it. Don't pry it. Don't do anything like that. There we go. Don't pry it. What you do, I just use my screwdriver. Hit the handle down here. And have a towel under here to catch it. Because what's going to happen, gosh, the side plate's in there. There it goes. So that's how you do that. You just hit it until that falls out. And don't mess with prying on it or anything like that. And the reason is because the edges between all this and this is very precise, and you don't want to mess those edges up, so don't pry on it. Okay, so came out real easy. You take that side plate off, so take that off. Do not pull this, don't do anything dumb like pulling the paper clip out with that under tension. It will blow up, okay? And if this were a Smith, it would have a leaf spring and a little screw right there putting tension on it. But since this is a Taurus, we're getting kind of a mix of all these things. So when you take that out, that little cap and spring actually pushes on the crane. So we can take the crane out now and the cylinder. So there's your cylinder and crane. And just in case you wanted to know, if you want to take this apart, this is reverse threaded, so to take this apart, you screw this from left to right. You're going to go you're going to go clockwise. That pulls out. That pulls out. Now, there's a spring in here. Don't lose it. There's kind of a lot of springs in this gun, actually. There's also a spring down in there. Don't lose it. Now, that hasn't come out on me, but it is in there. What I actually did do, though, was I didn't know the spring was in there, and I just started shoving stuff down in there to clean this out, and took a brush down in there and actually got it tangled up in that spring. I had to be very careful in taking the brush out of there. Also, this piece, see me pushing down on that? That's a little spring-loaded piece. That also falls out, so don't lose that. So there we go. And it's got a tiny, tiny little spring on it also. So for God's sake, keep up with these springs and these little pieces. All right, so now you're down, pretty much to the frame and your trigger assembly and your hammer. Now, if you were just going to clean the gun and just kind of knock the dirt out of it, this would be a pretty good place to stop. But if you're doing the spring kit like I was doing, you got to go a little further. If you notice, I can't pull this trigger back anymore. Okay, you're going to need to pull the trigger back to get some of these pieces out, take tension off of them. But if you got your cylinder loose, normally you push that forward, right? If you pull it backwards, then you can suddenly pull the trigger back. So pushing that back, I'm going to pull the trigger a little bit, and that takes some tension off the hammer. I should be able to pull the hammer off. It may take you a couple tries. There you go. So hammer comes off. This was one of the things I made sure it got nice and clean and wiped down with oil. All right. So there you go. Now, the next part is a pain, and I'm debating on whether or not to even... No, I think I can do it. Okay, you remember how you got this spring out? You're going to need to take this spring out. This is your trigger return spring. This is your hammer spring. This is your trigger return spring. And when you get this kit from Wolf, you're going to get a couple different weights in each of these. But like this one, it says hammer spring 12 pounds. This one says trigger return spring 11 pounds. What I did on, that says 445. No, that's still not, it would have to be 454 or 444 to be a Raging Bull. What I did was I went with 10 pound on the trigger return spring and the hammer spring, just because you may as well go as low as you can go at first. The reason you might not want to go as low, and the reason they give you these other springs, is because the lower you go on these springs, the more you run the risk of being unreliable. Hammer doesn't hit as hard, so it might not set the primer off. I haven't really run into that before, although I haven't done this many times. The only other gun I've ever put a spring kit on was my SP101, and it's still reliable. So with this one, I'm going to go ahead and just try a 10 pound on both. So to get this off, it works the same way this did, and I wish I had known that when I was taking this thing apart earlier today. Pull your little thing back, pull your trigger back, hold it, and if you look, there's a little hole on this. There's a little hole on this, just like there was for this. So what you want to do, I'll let that down again. Get you another, I started saying spark plug for some reason. Paper clip, not a spark plug. And push this on back. Come on, there we go. You're going to want to put this in that hole. And this is where you're really going to need, some dexterity and some patience. All right. So I got the paper clip in there. Now, that little metal circle right there, that little thing, that's actually just a pin. And there it is on the other side, okay? So when you got this spring captured, pull it out. And it comes out just like that. And boy, I wish I had known that earlier today, because I just kind of yanked it out of there without any paper clip and risked having that spring shot through the wall of my house and into my neighbor's yard. Okay, so this is only the second time I've taken this thing apart, so I'm kind of trying to remember just what all I did. So after doing that, does this come out, or is this ready to go? Let's see. Okay, so you got your trigger mechanism, or your trigger. All this is like your little trigger assembly here. This is your transfer bar right here. This is your, I can't remember what they call it. Maybe a pawl or an indexer. This right here is what rotates your cylinder. As you pull the trigger, it goes up and it grabs the cylinder and moves it. So I don't really know what you call it, I forget. But anyway, it's spring loaded and it comes back. With it back, there we go. Okay, that came out. So now you've got your transfer bar. That's important. You're going to need that, and you're going to need to know how it works. And you got this thing. We're going to call it the pawl. I'm not sure if that's what it is, but there you go. And then in your trigger here, on the back of it, you got this little thing with another little spring, okay? Don't lose this shit either. That goes right in there. And this is what puts tension on your pawl. And this trigger return spring, see how it's got a, see how it's got a round, see how it's got a little round end on it? See there? Okay. That goes in a little spot right there behind the trigger. Like if you were to put your finger on the trigger and pull it, it's right behind there. That's where it goes, and it's got to sit in there, so you're going to have to remember that. And then also don't forget, this little spring goes in a little hole in the back of the trigger. Don't lose any of this stuff. It's all very important. Having said that, put a towel down, something. Have a little, maybe even a little bowl, you know, like a mechanic might with a magnetic bowl, put nuts and bolts in, put all this stuff where you can't lose it. So there you go. And that really is about it. You've got your cylinder lock down here on the bottom. I don't really think that needs to come out. You can take it out if you want to just super deep clean this thing with like a Q-tip or something. I kind of did that earlier today. There's really no need for that. This is as far down as I took this gun. I don't know that there's anything more to do except for take that out and then maybe your cylinder release here. But that's also spring loaded, and you know what? I'm tired of springs at this point. So let's put the whole thing back together. You're going to start with your trigger because that's the last thing you took out. Take your little spring doohickey there, put it in the hole, and you're going to take your pawl, and it's got a little short pin that goes in this little hole. The short pin does. There's a long pin underneath it, and what that does is you want the long pin to be behind that spring-loaded doohickey, all right, so that there's some tension there. And here's something else I wish I knew when I was doing this earlier today. You got this thing. Your transfer bar, it goes in the same hole as the pawl, but just on the other side. See that hole right there? I hope y'all can see this. The transfer bar has a little pin on the bottom of it. It goes into that hole. This is a little bit tricky, but you got to hold these three things together while putting this on that pin. And I just screwed it up. So take it back off. No big deal. You're gonna have to be patient because you know it took me quite a few times to get this, and actually it took me a long time to even figure out how this went back together. Like I said, you kind of need 3 hands for this thing. Ooh. Oh boy, it tests your patience. Like I said, this is a little bit tricky here. So if you're having trouble with it, don't worry. Transfer bar. And the spring popped out. So if you swear enough, this will work. Ooh, yeah. All right, so might even have to just really play around with this thing a little bit to get this all back together. Just had an idea though. Why don't we do this? Instead of fighting all 3 of these pieces, let's just try to do it once. Let's just set that in there like that. And take our little spring. And let's just do it this way. Ooh. And if you feel yourself getting just real super frustrated or anything, just kind of calm down, take a minute, and come back to it if you need to. I'm personally about there myself right now. I did this easy. I guess I did it. Had a better time with it this afternoon, I'll tell you that. Maybe I'll edit this out, maybe I won't. Who knows? Get down here at eye level with it. Well, I'll tell you what, sometimes these spring-loaded pieces. Story time, I guess, then right now, huh? So, speaking of spring-loaded stuff, don't ever take apart a Kel-Tec P380. I took one of those things apart, and you want to talk about springs. I was screwing the springs on that thing. There was some kind of pin I took out of it, and when I took that out, when I took that spring out, or took that pin out, ooh, I did it. Okay, when I took that pin out of that Kel-Tec, I swear to God, 8 springs fell out of that thing and the whole gun came apart in my hand. And that sucked. And I was messing with that thing for I don't know how long. Okay, so now that you're done with that, you're going to put your trigger return spring back in it. I'm not pulling this out, don't pull it out, but I'm just moving it to get it kind of in there. Okay, there you go. Okay. Woo! It may go easier for you, it may not go easier for you, you know? Things are funny. Okay, so now I got that back in there. Well, I gotta keep reminding myself, turn it this way, you don't see it. So you got your hammer. You're gonna, again, pull the trigger back just a little bit, take some pressure off of that thing. Your hammer goes on that pin right there, and this little thing has to go underneath there. You can kind of figure that out. It's one of those things where it really can only kind of go together one way. There it goes. Okay, got your hammer back on there. Now you get your hammer spring. You're gonna make sure that's sitting in there. And with it in there like that, you're going to pull back on the hammer. Wait a minute. Okay, hold on just a minute. Just to make this a little easier, I'm going to go ahead and put the crane and the cylinder and all that back in there. Make sure that little springy piece is still in there. Crane always goes in there weird, but it will eventually go in there. Oh, wait a minute. Get your extractor, put that in there. Remember, there's a spring in there. And what that spring does, it puts pressure on the center pin right there. I don't know what it's called. I'm going to call it the center pin. Put this in here. Remember that this is, the ejector rod here is reverse threaded. So you want to turn it left to tighten it. And when that's tight, it puts pressure on the spring and it pops that out, see? So then when you close it, now you got about a half working pistol here. All right, so now we're cooking with gas. Okay, you put this in there. Put that right in there. Let that sit right there. Hammer spring. Hammer springs are normally easy. I have no idea why this thing's kind of being a butthole. Okay, there we go. Now, pull the paper clip out while it's under tension. Let it go. You got yourself a working firearm. Just put your cover plate back on here. You look, this has a little tooth here at the top, so that goes, this corner goes in first. Take your screwdriver. Just beat the devil out of it. Okay, then you got your 3 screws. Remember that this one's got the little cap and spring in it, so you want to do that one. Well, you don't have to do it first. I'm going to do it first just to get it out of the way, because the less time the spring spins outside the gun, the less opportunity for me to lose it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit real quick while I'm finishing up how this thing shot the other day. I actually did shoot it. It was okay. It kind of actually wasn't. I've got some sticky extraction going on. Well, it's not even sticky extraction. There's I've had problems with just loading the cylinder up. I was shooting Federal Premium 300 grain A-frame bullets. Now those are nickel plated, and I wondered if that had something to do with it. Came home, I scrubbed the hell out of this gun, and just cleaned it, scrubbed it, cleaned it, scrubbed it. I put old fired brass in it and ejected it, and just kept messing with it. And it it's getting a little bit better and better. I'm hoping that just the cylinder was just kind of, the chambers are just kind of tight, and it's just kind of got to get broken in a little bit. And I also bought some Hornady 454 loads that are brass, and I don't think they're going to have the same problem. They seem to feel just a little bit looser when I'm loading them. But really, the Federal now feels like it might be okay too. I'll tell you another thing I found while messing with this thing. That's another thing. Once you got this back together like this, check it and make sure it's firing and acting as it should. I noticed that when I was doing this, I noticed this was really rough. And the more I messed with it, the more I realized that as I turned the cylinder, I could feel different spots where somehow this was kind of rough. So I took this apart like I showed you, and I took this part here out, and I took that Brillo there, that real fine steel wool pad that I showed you in my last video, and just put some oil and just really scrubbed this down because it kind of had some burrs on it. So this is a lot smoother now too. So I'm going to try that Hornady and see if it still kind of sticks. But I think it's going to be okay because, you know, I'm still feeling some, but surely that will smooth out over time. So here we go. Fully disassembled. I showed you how to do the trigger. The two springs you're going to be replacing as a hammer spring trigger return. Now, the way you would put those springs on there is kind of scary, but okay, you got you know how I had them both held with a paper clip. Use this towel, kind of put it under the towel, put your hand on there, pull that pin out, and the spring's going to just pop off of there. What you would then do is put your new spring on there, and somehow you're going to have to hold everything in place while pushing it down and sticking this paper clip in there. Now for me, what helped was I just found this old piece of wood, and it already kind of has a divot in there, so I stuck the pin down in there so that it wouldn't, because on this countertop it was slipping and sliding all over. So I put it in there, and that kind of helped. It's a pain in the butt, but you only have to do it once, and when you're done with it, you're done with it. But the trigger pull on this thing is worlds better now. I mean, just worlds better. That probably took, feels like that took 40 pounds off the trigger. Some things about, or one more thing about the Raging Bull, because I've already kind of talked about a bunch of stuff. I saw a review where a guy said he did not like the Raging Bull being etched onto the side of the barrel. I think that's one of the coolest things about it. You know, I've always kind of thought of the big bore revolver group as kind of like the exotic sports car group. Smith & Wesson kind of reminds me of, like, you know, I don't know, Ferrari. A lot of refinement, a lot of precise engineering, but also a lot of maintenance. Kind of a snooty brand, you know. Porsche would kind of be like Ruger. You got something that's still performance oriented, but you can also daily drive it. You know, a lot of people talk about how, you know, their Ruger is like a hammer and put it to work. Well, it's kind of like a Porsche. A lot of people race them, but a lot of people also daily drive those things. Taurus would be like your Lamborghini, which is fitting since it's a bull. But yeah, Lamborghini is mainly about just not necessarily winning races at a track or anything like that, but just being an exhilarating experience and just being a flashy car. And that's kind of how this is. You know, you got your red stripe on the back, you got your laser etching on the barrel of, you know, even the Bull logo and all that. It's just, to me, I think these are really cool looking guns. Also, I tried to replace this front sight with, got a high-vis front sight. I could not drive the pin out of this thing. So I'm actually going to take this to a gunsmith and let him do it. But anyway, man, I really love the way this gun feels just in my hand. This is so much more, you know, usable and packable than my 500. You know, my 500 is ridiculous. It's a cartoon gun. It's a 10.5-inch barrel. This is 5. So, of course, you know, this is going to be more packable, but it just feels good. And with that spring kit in here, I mean, gosh, the gun just, I mean, it even just feels smoother, just smoother overall. Now that was also because I was cleaning parts as I pulled them out in this, but man, it's just smoother. Everything about it is just better with those spring kits in there. And again, these came from Wolf gun spring makers. Um, Cheap. I don't remember how much I paid for these, but overall, I'm very excited about this gun. I hope those chambers turn out okay. But anyway, now you guys know how to take this thing apart. Um, Comparing it to a Smith & Wesson, this is somewhere in between a Smith and a Ruger as far as difficulty taking it apart. Ruger's real easy. You just take this grip off, and there's like just everything is spring loaded. You don't even need tools in a Ruger, except for, I guess, take the grip off. Because there's no side plate, you don't even need the screwdriver. You take the grip off, and there's just a little push pin. You push that spring-loaded pin in, and there's a cut right here, and the whole trigger group just comes out the bottom of the gun, and that's, you know, that's pretty much disassembled on a Ruger. Smith is kind of more like this, but some of the pieces in the Smith are more intricate. That little oh gosh, the little trigger assembly in my Smith & Wesson 500, I took it apart one day. It was even more of a pain to get back together. It's one of those things, it wouldn't be a pain in the butt if you just left that trigger group alone, but I was messing with it and happened to let a certain spring come out that was a huge pain in the butt to get back in there, and that spring doesn't really need to come out. It just kind of came out because I was messing with it. This, obviously, like I said, you kind of need 3 hands through some of it. But as you saw in the video, we got it done. I mean, it's a 30-minute video or a 35-minute video. Didn't take too long to do it. It's okay. So the Taurus Raging Bull in 454 5-inch barrel. I've had some issues, but I'm working through them. You know, I cleaned up the ejector coming in and out with some steel wool. Got a new grip coming, got a new front sight coming, got a spring kit on there. Everything's really kind of working out for this thing, except for those tight cylinders, and I'm hoping that's fixed with the Hornady rounds. And you can bet that when I try it, I will have the video camera here with me. You know, whether or not it's a good video, I don't know. But anyway, guys, y'all have fun out there cleaning your guns and disassembling them. Be safe, and we'll catch you in the next one.